So let's start. So good afternoon and welcome to Enrich Your Coffee Season 3. On our topic for the 7th episode today, we're going to talk about applied and industrial versus fundamental science, who should get access to research infrastructures. And I can't wait to hear what Magnus Larsson, Head of Industrial Relations at Max4, Ed Mitchell, Head of Business Development Office at ESRF, and Graham Appleby, Business Development Manager at the UK's Easiest Neutron and Muon Source. We have a very large male panel today. But just before we start, and as usual, I invite you to put on your cameras and grab your cup and smile for our usual picture.
Yeah, thank you. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thanks. So I think the screen is yours, Magnus or Ed. I don't know which one of you starts.
Yeah, thank you.
Magnus is in charge.
So Magnus, it's yours.
Yeah, well, I have I have volunteered to start out this discussion here, but just to go back a little bit where it started from. We've been working a little bit with, we have been working with our industrial strategy last autumn and looking into different alternative modes to open up. And we had this discussion here with within this Calypso Plus group. And Ed, you brought up this thought that we also have been thinking alternative ways to be more accessible, because that's the question we asked here. Are we as open and accessible as we think we are? What can we do more to allow, especially then for industrial users, to better utilize these large-scale facilities? And then we also talked to Graham to join into this with a little discussion. And I'm just going to put up one slide.
Technical issues of virtual meetings.
Okay. So we were talking about different access routes and an open access route for industry. So, you know, the peer-reviewed access, the main access to synchrotron facilities, open calls twice per year we have at Max4 at least, where you apply and you have the proposal ranked on scientific merit, and then beam time is awarded for free with this need to publish your results. And then we have the proprietary access, where we have a possibility to get faster access on the short term, or you can put up this long-term framework agreements, and we have this access through a confidentiality agreement, and you pay fees for beam time and services, and the results belong to the buyer. So we're talking about if there could be something in between, and there are different models for this in between. And the one we're looking at is something we've inspired by what we call the Spring 8 model, because they have it at Spring 8. So this peer-reviewed industrial access with open calls twice per year, perhaps, apply for beam time, ranked by ranked on industrial impact, beam time for free, and a need to publish. And just to put this a little bit in context, and so the Spring 8 model, they have this with 6 open calls per year. They have a subcommittee of industrial application field to do the ranking. There's a need that the project team must contain at least one person employed by a private company, and this need for publish as industrial application proposal report. And they have put aside 10% of all the beam time allocated for this. And I mean, the big questions is, of course, is what the industry needs, and how much do they need, and how would it help us? But also this, how much, 10% is maybe not where we would start. It will eat up, of course, from the other open access mode, or would it be from the proprietary access? How often? Maybe not start with 6 open calls per year, but what would be a suitable time frame for industrial users? Proposal ranked on industrial impact. Well, what does this actually mean? it's an interesting question. And this need to publish, what kind of publication are we talking about here? Is it a peer-reviewed journal, or is it some other way of publication? Industrial case publication of some sort to show what for other industries what is able. So these are some of the thoughts that we are having for this open access for industry, with the associated questions to it as well. And I'm going to stop sharing there so I can see all of you.
Maybe we should bring in Graham for the experience at ICIS, where they've been trying sort of a similar scheme, right? And that's been running for 10 years, right, Graham?
Yeah, I can just answer how we do it already and give you some results about that. So I just need to check this is full screen and in presentation mode. Okay, that's presenter mode, I assume.
No, it's the presenter mode. It's the other. Yeah.
Change screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I will not talk about the facility, but this is ICIS, and we are next to Diamond and the Central Asia facility. So we have a nice big campus full of different capabilities nearby Oxford in the UK. And what we're going to talk about is this industrial access route, which we have, which essentially does what Magnus was describing. I even set up these two streams of access for industry, the traditional ones, proprietary versus the peer review. And I don't think I should go through these because they are also repeating what Magnus said, but essentially there are limitations for access to industry in the peer review way. And I mean, one of the points is that these economic industry plus academic proposals, which are peer reviewed, tend to not get beam time because they are not as scientifically excellent as more fundamental research, and the reviewers tend to favor these fundamental science ones. So essentially you can see a third of this sort of proposal coming into ICIS with industry partners are unsuccessful. And that also, obviously, when they are successful, they are spending months getting access. It's 4 to 6 months after the proposal comes in. And on the other hand, the proprietary method, it's not just expensive, but also, in often cases with neutrons, the industry does not really understand why they are valuable, and they won't just come in for a big contract without really understanding what will happen. So we have this what we call industrial collaborative R&D route, ICRD. It fits in between the two access routes. And before I talk about what it really involves, the main sort of starting point is that we don't sort of want to support industry access based on things like commercial gain, making incomes from the industry. We just want to focus on the economic impact of using neutrons. So essentially, our funding bodies give us enough money. So we just want to have industry using the facility so we can then communicate back to the public, to the government, to the funding bodies, why ICIS is important and what these techniques can do for society. And if it means that we can show economic growth, then it's very helpful. We want to build long-term partnerships with industry and engage with diverse industrial users. And so what this scheme does, it's now been running for 10 years, is the beam time is free from the beginning, and it can be obtained very quickly. So essentially 1 month or so after the proposal comes in, it's a open call, continuous. It doesn't involve set scheduled calls. The sort of key is that the proposals have to demonstrate that there will be economic benefit to the UK. So these are companies which have some sort of, let's say, station in the UK, but they have to therefore tell us why the UK's economy will benefit. So these are real numbers that come in. The companies have to provide matching in-kind contributions. When they have the data and they do the analysis, their results are confidential. And what's sort of another unique point is the company can decide, will they publish their results or will they keep them confidential and pay for the results within some number of years actually after they get their results. So it's actually the case now that some measurements from 2 or 3 years ago, we still don't know if they want to publish or purchase yet, just because it takes so long to sort of analyze neutron data. And so the sort of headline numbers are for 10 years of running that we had in total 69 proposals from 46 different companies. That's resulted in 430 full days of beam time for all of these measurements. It's an average of 48 days per year. And so we sort of had a target of 50 days per year. So it more or less fits with our target. The number of proposals which actually were making use of purchasing the data for confidentiality, that's only 5. So 5 out of all of the proposals were really considered valuable enough to purchase the data, which is something I will mention later. And so 37% of all of these actually were companies with no academic partner. So that's really the company coming in and using us without universities. So some further outcomes, I have to mention here that we are not able to talk about results that happened since 2017, 2018, because it's, as I said, it takes so long for the results to come out that 19 out of 69 have not actually been followed up with yet. So we have 30 publications, and that's actually more or less what we expect with normal direct access, that only about half of the proposals really end up with publications. 3 patents, 9 annual report articles for ICES, 12 case studies and website articles, and 1 PhD thesis. It's also important to notice that when trying to follow up, sometimes the staff at companies, they tend to change jobs rather frequently. So it's also hard to really get historical numbers out of them after a few years has passed. We have actually 31 companies only had 1 proposal, and 12 companies had 2 till 7 proposals, and 3 of the really large companies really came in with more than 8 proposals over these 10 years, which really lets us see how our sort of strongest users are and makes us want to follow up with these other companies to see if they want to come back. I mean, in terms of sectors and techniques, we have 13 different sectors, 8 of the different ICES techniques. I won't go through what they are. They're all the sort of standards, what you understand from synchrotrons and neutrons, engineering, personal care, all these types of things. But we have published all these results in a report, which is about to, I can make it available to you. It's not yet online, but I can email it to you if you want it. So just last slide, and on observations and conclusions. These 48 days of beam time per year, that actually adds up to £1 million of value of our beam time. That would be really £1 million of value of beam time. And if you add the company's matching in-country contributions, that's actually £2 million of value that comes out of this program per year. So £1 million from ICES and £1 million of companies' in-kind contributions per year from these 48 days of beam time. The fact that only 5 out of the 50 analyzed proposals have led to purchasing beam time really makes you think, okay, so the neutron data results, they are sort of much more on the fundamental science research side of things for the companies rather than what they're really doing when they are looking at something commercially sensitive. So it's just something to keep in mind, especially ESS and other neutron sources. This is much more of a fundamental research than a really commercially sensitive results that we are generating. But what it does mean is we have really a lot of journal publications with big companies, like literally staff of Rolls-Royce, staff of Unilever, staff of Johnson Matthey are publishing articles with ICES staff as co-authors. So those are really things that we can use for case studies and to prove how the companies are engaging with us, which is in the public domain. For this to be successful, you really need to have dedicated staff to track the outcomes. So I literally started this job 2 years ago, and the program being running for 10 years. I'm trying to pick up the output of some of these measurements from 2013, 2015, not very easy. So now in the future, I will be following these up in more real time. And we have this sort of drive that we start to funnel more of the standard proposals into this ICRD scheme so that when our instrument scientists see the proposals for the first time, they say this should really be an ICRD proposal. We can make this much better for the company if they go this way rather than stay with the peer review. So that's what we're going to do next in the next call for proposals at the end of this year, to really try to filter the mostly industrial ones into the scheme if we can. So some kind of very interesting observation that came out was ICIS had a external group called Technopolis, which is an economic expert group. They're external experts who in 2018 they published a ICIS lifetime report, and so they looked at this program when they did the analysis. It was 2016. First of all, they said essentially ICRD is now the main route through which industry gains direct access to the facility, and because we asked for this potential economic benefit to the proposals, this company looked at all of our numbers and said from just 15 out of the 36 which they looked at who have been able to quantify their benefits, they forecast more than £500 million of additional income or savings for those companies and the supply chains who actually participated. And these 15 experiments may help secure or expand national economic activity by several billion pounds over the next decade. And this is independent economic experts who looked at the data about this program and published this in our lifetime impact report summary, which you can access as well. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Do you want to switch off your
screen? I am.
There you go.
Yep.
Thank you. That's amazing, amazing results and a very nice presentation. It's very cool to see.
Yep. I can email out these results. So it's an 18-page report with some appendices about the sort of application form and the agreements we have. But I also have a 3-page summary of the highlights that I can send out as well.
That'd be, yes, please. That'd be very interesting.
Thank you very much. That would be great.
Maybe I can send it to Chiara and she can distribute it.
Yeah. Just a quick question, because we should start a discussion. But when you mentioned, Graham, that the industrials applying through the ICRD should have matching in-kind funding. What does that's like? Samples, staff time?
Yeah, they talk about how their staff work on producing the samples, what their equipment use was, and I mean it's never been a problem for 1 day of beam time for the company to say we supplied essentially £15,000 of our efforts.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Nice.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Graham. Are the companies accessing the ICRD program, should they be British only?
They don't have to be British, but they have to all at least have a sort of office in the UK. Okay. So for companies which do come from Germany and France and America, when they have some existence in the UK, they can apply. But we also, for example, I mean, we've invited a Swedish company to join because they are working for something that ESS will benefit from. And because UK funds ESS, then essentially this can help the ESS, which can help the UK. So we make some juggling to support those types of things.
Well, that's very open. Just a question from my side then would be, one of the questions that I post is this the review process, how you treat this, the impact, how do you rank these proposals?
Well, yeah, I can mention
have other been excluded through the process?
I mean, so we don't really have to rank the proposals and compete them against each other because it's an open, continuous submission. It's not like we have a limited number of days that we really say this one should get it and this one should not. So it's more flexible. But the way that ICIS is operated is STFC, which is the council, the funding council. This also funds lots of other facilities in the UK. So the space research, satellite research, this laser facility, and we also have our own business and innovation directorate. So the business and innovation directorate of all of STFC, which governs all of the industry sort of engagement of all the different facilities. And I'm literally part of this BID. I'm not an ISIS staff member. I'm a BID staff member. And my line manager, who's like the director of business development of all the facilities, he has a group who can review the proposals and basically decide if the economic impact of those are suitable or not. And so he's not exactly independent because he's an STFC employee, but at least he's not an ISIS staff member. He's not a neutron expert, but he's got a science background and he's director of business development.
Thanks. We have two questions in the audience. Michele, do you want to start? You were first.
Yes, thank you. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks both speakers about the presentation. I've been involved very long time ago with the synchrotron accelerator, BESSY 1, BESSY 2. And at that moment, the only industry which was showing interest for synchrotron radiation was the semiconductor industry. Is still this industry interested in neutron synchrotron or electron synchrotron?
Well, yes. There are a lot of sort of different parts of understanding semiconductors that both X-rays and neutrons can work with. At ISIS, we have our real commercial beamline, which is set up only for industry measurements, which does fast neutron irradiation on microelectronics to test the radiation hardness for space applications and this type of thing. So we really are working with lots of electronics companies to show that their products are radiation hard. But we also have muon beamlines who can look at charge carrier properties in semiconductors and other things. And synchrotrons, they do the same.
Yeah, Michelle, we have down in Grenoble, we're linked with the Research Institute in Grenoble on nanoelectronics, which is part of the French Strategic National Investments. And there we're just starting with Ennio Capria, who's not, I don't think he's here today, but he's just kicking off he is here. So Ennio might want to jump in if he's there. Starting a program on developing irradiation using synchrotron, very fine synchrotron X-ray beams. So there's certainly the electronics industry is very much there. Could be more there. We'd be very happy about that.
Okay, thank you.
We have another question from Izar. Do you want to?
Hi, yeah, thanks very much for that. I actually work with Graham at STFC, and I'm also a business development manager. I just wanted to make a point that actually is very often overlooked, is that this collaborative R&D, a significant part of this is the knowledge exchange between industry and the scientists. And that's actually quite a significant and important part to understand, that exchange of information, therefore upskilling the industry and so on. So that was the point I wanted to make.
Thanks. And we have one more question, Aleftina.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have not a question. I have a comment about Michele's question about BESSY 2. I'm currently working at BESSY 2, but not directly involved in communication with the industry. But as far as I know, we are very closely work with PVComB, so with the photovoltaics Institute and some maybe small enterprises which are involved. And also, I think you know very well that two of our main strategic partners are Physikalisch-Technische Bundesanstalt, this Metrology Institute in Germany, which definitely collaborates with some industry, and also Bundesanstalt für Materienforschung und Prüfung. And so maybe it could be considered somehow that there is a demand from external organizations, not fully research institute, to in beam times at synchrotron at least, or at least in our synchrotron. So there is a demand. Thank you.
Pauline.
Yeah, I just had a question about what you were doing on the communication side to actually reach the industry and offer your service to industry. Do they just come to you, or do you manage to somehow, I mean, because I am working in a research infrastructure, and sometimes, I mean, we easily reach our academic partners, but finding the right channel to reach industry that might have an interest in our facilities is sometimes a bit of a struggle for us.
Well, I mean, one of the main success routes is from the academic users who do have these industrial partners. So it's so for this scheme I'm presented, it's a very successful way to tell the academic users with industry partners, you should use this scheme. It's easier for you to get access. And then they can reroute their proposals. So it's sort of, the industry is already working with academia and they know neutrons. But, you know, we have this also not a bottom up, but top down approaches where we go out as a industry liaison, business development people, and we do forms of marketing and outreach, make these case studies and try to demonstrate why we can do things which are useful and really communicate and try to get the industry interested, and then doing some free measurements for them before they have to sign any contracts is a good way to get them interested. But it's a common bottleneck which has been going on since I've been involved 10 years ago. The industry doesn't yet know enough about synchrotrons and neutrons to come to us directly in most cases.
I can put just also one comment onto that question. We really try to, just to underline what Graham says, we really try to work through the academic groups. And either identify these settings where academia and industry and institutes and other organizations are working together, or try to encourage the establishment of such platforms, or even sometimes we step in and try to help establish these type of platforms, because we see that's a great way for us to connect when we have a platform where we have a pre-competitive environment, industry, academia working together, and to connect through them.
Alexander, do you want to ask your question or comment?
Yes, there was a comment on PTB and BAM, but these organizations actually owning their own beamlines, and the question will be then, I mean, so basically the organizations which are at synchrotron who are actually collaborating with industry more or less. And are there also other beamlines which are dedicated specifically or sold out completely to industry? And how is this handled?
Of course, I cannot answer on behalf of PTB and BAM. I can tell only that they offer some time at their beamlines for our users. I cannot tell how much, I don't know, but we as a users can apply for PTB and BAM beamlines at BESI2, and you can get a beam time as a user. It's okay. And how they regulate their own time at their own beamlines, it's their business.
Okay, and to Graham, at your location, is there something similar? So you mentioned, I don't know, Johnson Matthey or something.
So
do you have like, yeah,
they're our sort of best example of an industry partner, but they are more funding staff rather than instrumentation. So they literally employ postdocs who are 50% from them, 50% from ISIS or the laser facility to do work on their behalf. But you know, we've sort of approached them about funding beamlines, building their own building on site, but they are actually more interested in people rather than these other sort of resources. But there is, you know, the synchrotron in Japan, they have this Toyota beamline, which is obviously funded by Toyota. They are not very transparent. They're not very hard to get hold of to understand really how they operate that. So if you have good luck, maybe you can ask them.
The APS as well. US has many industry-sponsored beamlines like IMCACAP, the Industrial Macromolecular Crystallography Association. There's DND with who's on DND? It's Dow and I can't remember, another company together with Northeastern, and at PSI, the Swiss Light Source. As you know, I guess from Switzerland, right? There's a number of beamlines there that are co-funded by industrial partners from the Founders School industry.
Yeah, but with the neutron source, as I said, the companies much prefer to publish their results rather than paying for them. So they don't see at the moment a whole lot of value from big investments in infrastructure.
It'll come.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will.
Thank you.
Magnus and Michele, I think Magnus, you were first.
Well, I have a question to the audience here. I mean, there are many colleagues out there from other facilities. Anyone else thinking in these terms, or have similar schemes where there are alternative routes for industry that are less black and white?
I'm not ready to share the details about BESI2 at the moment, unfortunately, because it's not my direct business at BESI. But if you are interested, I can try to clarify and to come back with this information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just as a sort of coincidence, another thing I'm doing is interviewing other neutron sources around the world for how they work with industry. So I talked yesterday to the representation from Oak Ridge National Labs in the US, and sort of completely coincidental, they do have their own something like ICRD, where they let the companies come in directly and provide economic benefit rather than the academic commercial route. So it was news to me that they are doing this, but they have something very similar to what we have.
Michele, I think you have a question. If I can just ask a quick question before, I was actually wondering, because in your presentation you mentioned, as you gave example of industries that you worked with, but they are like large companies. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you attract or if you have any SMEs in the program, yeah. And yeah, how do you get access to them?
Well, we do. We have, for example, the most recent one I helped with was a small company in the UK, which actually Izar, this colleague who just signed off, he actually brought in as a potential user. So he, for example, goes out and talks to companies, and he brought them in to talk to us, and we set up a feasibility study and got a measurement. So he's a sort of impact and engagement business development manager for all of STFC. And we have these mediator companies like Finden, Commercial Resource. So they are starting to use the scheme as well. They are really small companies, but they represent larger ones.
Yeah, they came. Yeah. We had a coffee session with them.
Yeah. So Finden also put in a proposal last year, and I mean, we just, as I said, we use our routes. We talk to the companies who work with industry, and if there are small ones and big ones, but we still would like to approach more SMEs, because they are the ones who really benefit from saving the money on not spending proprietary access costs.
But do you have any specific criteria when you call for for the program, like targeting SMEs, or like?
No, it hasn't been as it was set up. It's sort of one of our goals to improve the program going forward is to have more SMEs working with us.
Okay. Well, we are running out of time. So Michele and Ed, and so Michele, you were first. And Ed, you can conclude after.
A quick question. Do you give beam time for military applications?
I don't remember if it's my facility or another one who definitely says that they will never do anything for military application. I haven't seen any at ISIS. But we do have a new facility being built, which is co-funded by the Ministry of Defense, which is a laser facility looking at plasmas and laser accelerated particles, and that's actually being funded by the Ministry of Defense.
Once upon a time, in US, there was the neutrons beam which could fire satellites. Is this program still going on?
I don't know if that's happening in the US.
So not in Europe?
I don't think so.
I hope not.
question is what you consider military. I mean, I know for sure that at DAISY there were measurements done for Airbus, but maybe that was not Airbus defense. And at PSI, I think there are projects going on with some of the, I think, maybe Thales or something, but then again, they have a lot of different departments. So how do you say, so is it just if you are measuring guns, then it's military, or is it just if you're collaborating with companies which are in general involved in the military research and so on?
It's a huge grey zone. At the ISRF, our statutes state research is only for peaceful ends. But as you say, you've got companies like Safran, Thales, and others who have polyvalent work that they do. And even if you look at pharma, if pharma's looking at defense against bioagents, when does that become military and when is it for peaceful ends? It's huge. We've had a couple of cases where we could not do the work because it was clearly flowing into the military zone. I mean, and it was very clear. And we couldn't do that work on academic or commercial programs, right? Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the question.
Good question.
Thanks. So Ed, your turn, and maybe we close after.
Well, yeah, Magnus can do the summary, right? Just to say, because somebody asked about SME, there was a thing coming up about SMEs and providing access. So there was a scheme run by ALBA and supported somehow by the ISRF, but ALBA with Nuria and Alejandra doing most of the work, called Tomata, where we had European subsidy to provide access to SMEs, fully confidential. They keep the data, no need to publish, no nothing. The only rule that you have to be an SME under European rules, make a little application, one pager with an external review, again, keeping information minimal to avoid confidentiality issues. And that was very successful. We had 25 companies, I think, in the pilot, and that's going to carry on in the next European project. That was supported through Calypso Plus, and now that'll carry under Leaps Innovation, where we've got money to carry that on. And it'd be nice to see that written at a larger scale with perhaps other research infrastructure families coming in, not just the synchrotrons. Anyway, that was it. Magnus?
Yes, let's wrap up the coffee break. I think it's to start with thanks for everyone showing up. Surprised such a big gang here. And I think the wrap-up conclusion is here. I think everyone is looking forward to Graham's report here to learn more about what you have learned working with this access mode for 10 years at your facility. And from our point of view, we still have some question marks we need to straighten out to see how we can open up new access routes at max 4, but we are on the way. And if anyone would like to join a continuing discussion after this coffee break, maybe not directly after, but in the following time here, I think we're all open for that, Ed, Graham and me. So yeah, thank you from our side.
Thanks, everyone. So you will see the link to our LinkedIn private group, where we invite you to continue this very interesting conversation. And we would like also to remind you that tomorrow morning we have our third webinar of Enrich Your Knowledge at 10 o'clock. Registrations are still open, so don't hesitate to join us. And we have our fourth webinar on Monday. So we have a very busy Enrich schedule. But we are on Monday at 3 o'clock, and we are very much looking forward seeing you. We have our next session not on the 24th because it's RNI days at the Commission, but we meet you for our last episode of the season on the 1st of July, where we will talk about the innovation mole, which will be presented by Antonio Bonucci from Expel. So until then, have a very nice day, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.